It's Dr. Manny. Welcome to Asylum. Let's get it. Um, First of all, let me see if I can turn this camera around. I came down to the lake to do a little morning reflection, um, especially with the 2020. Y'all know I like to come by the water. I also like to go in places where other people aren't, and a perfect place to be when other people are pretty much guaranteed not to be is a lake when it's raining. All right, so there you have it. All right, let me flip this camera so y'all can see more of the scenery and less of me. All right. So this is one of my kind of anchor lakes, one of my favorite lakes. Tend to come down here to clear my head. Um, when I'm not on the road, I come down here to reflect, to plan. I already said to clear my head. I was going to say to think about nothing, but that's kind of the same thing. Um, so good morning. Felipe, what's up, homie? Happy New Decade, fam. Welcome to Asylum. I definitely I'm gonna hit you up in the DM because I've been meaning to follow up with you because I want to get together again. Absolutely. So let me verbally commit to that now so we can get that done. Okay. So all right. Let me decide which direction I'm gonna go. Then we can get this flow happening. It's super relaxing. If it starts to rain, I'm also gonna complain because I'm not wearing something waterproof. Okay. So most of you guys who have followed me for a while, whether it's been on this platform or Google Plus or back in the day when I was heavy on Twitter, know that I like to deconstruct these ideas because the way I've been trained, um, it's I was trained empirically, but sometimes as I spent more time in the process, I've come to see that it's a bit of a neurotic training where I don't do well with uncertainty. Well, I used to not do well with uncertainty. Increasingly, that's one of the capacities that developed for me. And so when I put something out there, I like to know that it makes sense and that if someone actually implements it the way that I implement it or implement it the way that I imagine it, that they'll get their result as well. They are noisy for breakfast at the toastery. So a lot of times when I approach an idea, it might initially sound like an emotional idea. But what I tend to do is look at the research and see statistically how the idea fits in people's brains and what kind of results they get as being a person who keeps that idea as a high value idea. By high value, I mean they live by it. They'll not necessarily impose it on other people, but make their decisions according to that value. So with that being said, the concept of gratitude and compassion, I think you got to begin with the gratitude because if you start with the assumption that your mind can hold one idea at a time, and I mean really, really hold that idea, then you want to look at what the valence is, how you feel when you're holding a certain idea. What are the ideas that nurture you? Which ones make you feel expansive? As in, which ones make you willing to give, willing to show aspects of you, willing to be vulnerable, and willing to trust? I love the way this water is blowing in the breeze, right? So it's important to look at which ideas empower you to be a more expansive and powerful person, as opposed to which ideas run you towards scarcity, fear, fight, flight mode, defensive reactivity, which ideas would lead you to feel vulnerable and competitive. I think I might have said competitive already. But the concept of gratitude, when you hold gratitude as a core idea, what happens is it allows you to be present because when you fill your mind with the gratitude, with gratitude in a given moment, when you truly fill your mind with it, like when you give it all of your attention, it brings you to presence in that moment. It makes you look in that moment. Hey Joyce, welcome to Asylum. Thanks for joining. Happy New Decade. So when you fill your mind with the concept of gratitude and you explore that idea and you elaborate it, there's not really much room in your mind for like the scarcity-based ideas. It brings you to the present, to the here and now. And with the here and now, once you get the present, you create a sense of safety, and you want it to be an honest sense of safety. You don't want to be in danger and trying to do gratitude. Thank God this saber-toothed tiger is about to eat me a new butthole. Pardon my French for those who are easily offended, but this is Asylum. You can get over it or you can get out. So when you're cultivating that sense of gratitude, what emerges a true sense of peace of gratitude, you get an opportunity to go inward. And by going inwards, what you're doing is you get to choose the elements that you foreground in your presence. Something as simple as I'm watching this water, I could choose to complain because it's cloudy, and I could bring that to my attention, and I could allow that automatically to shift my mood to a negative state. But instead, with a gratitude mindset, I can choose to be grateful for this fountain and the fact that that breeze, which isn't the warmest breeze ever, the fact that that breeze is creating this visual opportunity for me to see something, something ethereal, watching this water move in a particular way. Now, that's a choice. You cultivate the habit of doing that automatically instead of possibly having a habit where I could have woken up and been like, oh crap, it's cloudy, roll over, go back to bed. That was also a choice. Now, initially, you cultivate the gratitude deliberately over and over again. You make it a conscious habit. And just like you can cultivate scarcity, which makes you avoidant and in denial and negative and critical with people, by cultivating the gratitude deliberately, eventually your brain does it on autopilot. It becomes a myelinated path, which means it works about 10,000 times faster. Those are the ideas, the cluster of ideas that come to mind automatically. Hey, Dr. Michelle, welcome to Asylum. So, hey, Blossom, welcome to Asylum. If it's doctor, I apologize for not addressing you with the title and respect, so it's assumed. But the process of cultivating gratitude, and this is true gratitude, not scarcity and saying gratitude, saying thank you and begrudgingly, like, when we were kids and we had to say grace and we were bitter. But when you're truly cultivating the gratitude and you're filling your mind up with the gratitude, what emerges is an ability to stay present and to appreciate that which is in the moment. With the ability to appreciate that which is in the moment, the quiet that you create, the safety, the tendency to not be grasping for something in the future, worrying about what's not present, or being too caught up in nostalgia, holding on to things from the past that felt good that are gone now, or holding on to parts of you in the past that were limiting and disempowering. By being present, you release all those, and all your energy is in the moment, and you're able to make choices that allow you to expand. All your energy is in becoming the version of you that is most suited for the situation, or leaving and changing the situation. This is serenity prayer type stuff where you're like, I don't like this situation. I'm not going to take the energy of that I have in the moment to complain and use language that reminds me that I feel disempowered. Instead, I'm going to save that energy in quiet, create equanimity, and get up out of there. So the gratitude allows you to have a habit of automatically being present in the situation and not automatically believing and buying into whatever limiting beliefs, limiting thoughts happen to be the first thing that your mind burps up, basically. So this is the part where you choose to have a mind without being controlled by your mind. So again, these are simple concepts that we carry with us at all times, but we've developed sort of a knee-jerk response of just doing it because we were supposed to. Gratitude was something you're like, oh yeah, I'm grateful. And you go back to being a bitter-ass person saying that you're grateful. You go back to being a so-called person who's proclaiming the gratitude, but you're better at judging other people who aren't grateful. We call that, I think that's downward self-regulation in psychology, where, you have this principle that you live by, but instead of living by the principle, you're much better at spotting other people who are not living by the principle. And that allows for something called spiritual bypassing, where, you're a person of this word and you speak the word all the time, but really your best thing is realizing all the people who don't live by the word, judging them and feeling better that way. And that's your way of feeling complete as opposed to actually doing the work of growth. Okay, so that's the gratitude part. Now, once the gratitude allows you to be present, by being present, you're no longer in fight-flight mode. You're no longer triggered. You're no longer in autopilot. By not being on autopilot, that means that your perception, what you see when you look around in the world, is true. It's here now. It's not what the thing reminds you of. It's not why something similar pissed you off a few months ago. It's not why you feel inadequate and not deserving and worthy of even having the opportunity. Ooh, look, ducks. Let's get closer to the ducks. Why not? So, with the gratitude, as you cultivate a habit of gratitude, what it does is when the gratitude becomes automatic, then it opens up, it creates space for you to hold space for other people. And then that's when the compassion kicks in. I'm absolutely getting wet by this water. So that's all the ducks y'all are going to see right now. So, do I want to go across here? I'm pretty sure this iPhone is waterproof. Yeah, let's get it. All right. So basically, the gratitude creates the abundance through the compassion, because when you're doing the gratitude on autopilot, you don't have to use the deliberate energy all the time to actually be like, oh, I got to remember to be grateful, and still carrying the begrudging energy that you have to do this silly or stupid or irritating task of being grateful. And I want to pause there and point out, like, the irony in labeling gratitude as stupid is that, as I said earlier at the beginning of this conversation, your brain holds your mind holds space for one thought at a time. So the second you decide that the valence, here go the ducks. The second you decide the valence you're going to apply to the gratitude is that this is that stupid gratitude, or this is that irritating gratitude, that silly gratitude, or that gratitude I'm doing because my parents made me do it. Again, putting a compulsion to it as opposed to feeling gratitude. You've shifted the emotion in that space. You've robbed yourself of the opportunity of being present, because now you're running a moralizing script. It means you're telling yourself you have to do this thing, and you've robbed yourself of that kind of free-floating present energy of autonomy. You're running what's called an ego narration script. You're doing this thing because someone told you that this was the way to either get to heaven, get rich, get successful, or for people to like you. If your brain is running those scripts, there's no room for compassion. Okay? Because the compassion scripts come into your mind because you're able to be interested and curious about what people have to say. And when people are telling you their story, you're not automatically self-absorbed. And I want to back away from the word self-absorbed as having a judgmental valence. People be like, I'm not self-absorbed. Self-absorbed is what happens in any moment when you feel threatened. Anytime you feel unsafe, and so your brain, someone's telling you about something, and you have to do that self-regulation I mentioned earlier. That means in the moment someone's telling you something, and you're instantly thinking about, why they shouldn't be complaining because their trauma is not that bad. What they're going through, you had something worse. That's what we call one-uppance. Why sometimes someone will be telling you something, and instead of just being compassionate, you're sitting there kind of feeling like there's holes in their story. It may be someone who has a history of distorting stuff for sympathy or for attention. It might be someone who has a history of not reciprocating with the compassion. There's, and again, this goes back to what I said earlier, where in a lot of cases, you got to make the decision to move out of that situation. You don't sit around and listen to people tell you the sob stories who are in the habit of going from person to person and telling sob stories and not taking action. That's not constructive. That's just super frustrating. But so the opening that happens for compassion is when you've practiced the gratitude and you aspire to reach the compassion, and you're like, this is one of my ideals. This is the Aristotelian stuff. Like in Aristotle's work, he talks about when you have these ideals. And it might be more of Socrates' work than Aristotle. I have source amnesia about this stuff sometimes. But one of the core principles is when you have these ideals, you don't immediately start beating yourself up for not having it, because you won't reach it that way. The fact that the idea comes to mind as something to aspire to means that you should realize that you have it within you. That's where the have it within you stuff, everything that you want, you already have type of mindset kicks in. The fact that you're thinking about it means that you have that concept in your mind. The fact that you have the desire for it means that you have the capacity to create that feeling within you. It's just that in that moment, you might happen to be running some of the judgment scripts, some of the more self-absorbed, pain-inducing scripts in your mind. Okay? So back to how that connects to gratitude and compassion. Again, the goal of cultivating a habit of gratitude is if your mind can only do one thing at a time, and you are training yourself to automatically frame your reality based off gratitude, you're also automatically moving your mind away from depression, scarcity, and anxiety, self-judgment, and that self-absorption we talked about earlier. Sometimes when you see something good, you just can kind of enjoy it. Or if it's something that's not great, you can be aware that you're not happy with it. You could do what the Abraham Hicks law of attraction people call surfing contrast, where you're like, this is what I don't like. And then you decide what you do like, that it calls to mind, because your brain is really good at the opposites game. So you do opposite thinking. You decide what you do like, and you decide, and really automatically you'll find that your mind brings up some suggestions as to how to get there. You know, often how to get there is, guess what? Through compassion. The compassion allows the abundance, because as you listen to more and more people, what you'll find is that if you're specific, if you develop cultivate a habit of discernment, you'll find that you attract people who communicate a particular way. Usually, this is where the law of attraction stuff kicks in, where you will attract people who communicate in ways that match the way you are now. If you're a judgmental, complaining person, you're either going to attract into your space, and by attract, I mean you're going to find people, and word will spread that you're the kind of person that complainers want to be around, and so on. You'll find that you attract people who are more in alignment with your values, more in alignment with your interests, and speak like you do, because you'll be pleasant to be around for them. Now, with that comes the benefit that you get a healthier hive mind, and I'm not talking about hive mind where you lose your autonomy. I'm talking about where the things that you bring into being through language, those around you amplify them. You get the synergy, and as they're telling you the things that they've gone through, the negative things they've gone through, it's not in a heavy complaining way, but it's in a way such that, since you have done the work of being independent and cultivating the gratitude, you're able to hold what they're talking to you about. You're able to basically identify instead of judge and other, and make them a little mini judgment board where you make them lesser than. You're able to instead see it as an opportunity to identify. And the second you identify, this is when your brain does the magic, where it does what a lot of the people in the self-help work call get downloads from the universe. This is the point at which your brain takes in information super, 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 super fast, because it decides that this information is self-relevant. And you develop that first-person subjective curiosity, where instead of feeling like you're studying some stuff that you need to put in for use at some point, your brain gets really present in that moment. It identifies with what the person is saying, and it takes the information in exponentially faster, because it takes it in not as their words, but as the meaning. And it takes in the context. And, this is the kind of thing where if you're watching someone, especially someone who's a master, do practice their craft, you're able to notice a lot of the nuances, and you could learn by watching and learn by mimicking. This is mirror neuron stuff. This is your information superhighway. Yeah. So I think I've covered those concepts enough. I don't know how long we've been going, but I'm going to walk the lake a little bit more. More ducks. Look. Yeah. So two core concepts, and just to simplify it, to make sure that I communicated and distilled a specific point. You cultivate gratitude through the practice of gratitude. You do it deliberately, and you observe your mind and make sure that as you're practicing, you're not also practicing complaining about the gratitude. You're practicing being present in the moment. You're practicing just connecting to truth. And as you make that a practice, it becomes less challenging. It becomes, it, you come to notice when you're not doing it, and you come to notice what you're doing instead, whether it's worrying, being anxious, being, critically self-absorbed, projecting critical self-absorption onto other people, and just being sort of a negative blamer, shamer, just all these different things that you could let your mind be quiet instead. And in that quiet, that extra energy is the space within which you cultivate the compassion. And as the two of them become automatic, that's where the payoff happens. If you're an empirical person, that's where the payoff happens. The sense of belonging from not othering others. You get less of a sense of loneliness. you feel less like people are judging you because you're doing less judging yourself, and you're able to let your more authentic self come through. Once your more authentic self comes through, then you're able to attract like-minded people who are willing to be equally authentic and genuine, and willing to be more disclosing to you as to how they're having their success and how they're creating a sense of fulfillment. Hey, Al, welcome to Asylum. So I think that covers it. So those of you who missed the last part, or if you have any questions about any of this, please let me know. As always, you can send me a message in my direct message, or you can put comments on here. As you guys may have noticed by now, I tend to come back and check videos when the comments are on there, or once a year I tend to come back and re-listen to these videos, and sometimes a couple years later. So anything you have to say here, you could put it on here. You could make it a reminder to myself, to me, and actually a reminder to yourself, because whatever you put on here this year, know that next year around this time, your mind will remind you of it, because Facebook will, unless in some bizarre universe, Facebook goes under or we all stop using it. Highly unlikely. All right. These are my thoughts. Thanks for joining me, Asylum. Dr. Manny. I'm out.